Jungkook, along with his boys, was playing soccer in the playground, where others sat on the chairs to watch the match. Everyone's eyes were on Jungkook, who was playing with all his heart, as soccer is his favorite game, in which no one can possibly defeat him. The game was about to end, and everyone was getting tired, but Jungkook still had his all in the last minutes. And as he was about to make another goal, which would make a hat trick for him, he slipped, making the ball hit in some other direction. The ball flew in the air and hit exactly on the head of a girl who was sitting in the audience to watch the match. The ball hit her badly as Jungkook kicked it very hard. All of them looked at the ball and her with it. Everyone's eyes were on her, so being an introvert girl, she got shy and wanted to go away from there. But before that, Jungkook approached her, running from his place, and moved her bangs from his hands to look at her forehead. She was startled by his behavior. He immediately asked her, "Are you okay?" "I'm sorry." Vine didn't say anything, but just nodded her a little and went away from there, as she couldn't bear all the eyes watching her. How rude! She didn't even utter a word, Jungkook's teammate said after looking at her doing this. But Jungkook kept quiet on this, or to say, he was lost in her for a moment, for that's why he was quiet. Jungkook, forget her. Let's continue the game, he said with a smile on his face. Come on, let us go now. Don't you get tired at all? His teammate asked after whining upon him. Jungkook, I didn't even start yet. Let's go, he said while running towards the playground. Vine sat in her class where there were only 2 to 3 students sitting, so she felt comfortable sitting in there. She took out her phone and started looking at her pictures with her dad, her first and only love. She looks at them whenever she feels anxious or scared. It never fails to calm her down. She finally had a little smile on her face at the moment when Jungkook entered in the classroom. He noticed her as there were only a number of students sitting there. He stopped at his place and kept looking at her smile for a minute. His heart felt at peace for looking at her. He thought it would be a waste to lose this smile. He took out the phone from his pocket and took a picture of her face. He smiled after looking at it and sat on his chair. He sat on his chair, which was 2 seats behind her. He was reeking of sweat, so her attention went towards him. She looked behind with disgusting expressions on her face, letting him know that he smells. Jungkook, I smell right? Sorry, I'll just take a shower. He was about to get up that she gestured him to stop and took out the perfume from her bag. Offering him that, she smiled again, which made him got lost again. He looked at her hand and gladly took the perfume. He looked at it, which said, for women. Jungkook, but it's for women, he said looking at her, but she didn't say anything back to him, so he just sprayed it on him, ignoring the subtitle. Thank you, he said while giving it back to her. She took it and put it again in her bag, without saying anything again, for Jungkook wanted to know now. Jungkook, why don't you say anything at all? Are you mute or something? She slowly nodded, looking downwards, when Jungkook asked her, What? Really? I was just saying. He was stunned to hear this, but he smiled when he realized, Don't worry, you can talk to me in sign language. I know it. Wine's eyes widened up and she looked at him. She asked him in sign language, really? But how do you know? Jungkook, my sister is mute too. I had to learn it for her. That is so lovely. You must love her a lot. She asked him, while again providing him that wide, bright smile of hers. He looked at her, for she thought he didn't like it. Oh, sorry. I was saying too much, right? She turned her face to the front after saying that, for Jungkook came in front of her in an instant to say, no, it's not like that. I like you. I like my sister a lot. She felt happy and comfortable when he talked to her like that. Both smiled to each other while Jungkook took a seat on his chair. He smiled the whole time she was sitting ahead of him. He only looked at her from behind and smiled the whole day. When it was the time to go home, Vine packed her bag and started walking to the outside with her calm and usual gait, which changed in an instant when a bunch of guys suddenly surrounded her. She couldn't even say anything nor scream for help. The boy in front of her came and held her hand while saying, why are you in so much hurry? Let me take you home today. What do you say? All she did was try to get rid of his grip, and she was anxious like hell when Jungkook saw this from behind. His eyes widened, and dropping his school bag on the ground, he ran to that boy, only to punch him hard on the face. How dare you? Jungkook said while raging in anger. Then he clenched his fist. Jungkook held her hand, fitting his fingers into hers. He said to them, she is my girlfriend, so don't mess with her from now on. What? Jungkook has a girlfriend now? Conrad's friend, and I'm sorry. I didn't know. The boy who was bullying her said to Jungkook, for he replied, you know now, so don't get in her way. Vine watched the whole scene without reacting, but she was too stunned when he held her hand and called her his girlfriend. She didn't dislike it that much. Inside, she was smiling. Finally, she can feel safe around someone else than her father. Jungkook, you know now, so don't get in her way, he said, and while holding her hand, he walked away from there in an instant with her. While going to somewhere else, he left her hand and looking in her eyes, he said to her, I'm sorry if you didn't like it, but that was the only way, so don't worry. No one will mess with you now. Now that they know that you're my girlfriend. Vine said to him in sign language, no, no, thank you in fact. You saved me. I owe you for this. Jungkook smiled at her. Thank God you're understanding. Unlike some possessive girls who would come at me for saving them. She laughed looking at him, and it was the first time when he heard her voice. That mesmerizing voice, which was enough to make him get lost in her. He looked at her and wanted to kiss her so bad at that moment. But he didn't. He knew that she smiled only when he was around. She felt safe around him. So if he does that, he was afraid she might feel unsafe again. Jungkook, you know, I didn't dislike it that much. I mean, when I protected you and said that I like you. I promise I'll make you feel safe. Can you give me a chance? It wasn't even long that he completed his sentence, that she raised her feet to match his height and kissed him. He was too startled at first, but he kissed her back soon. He didn't expect this at all. She looked at him after breaking the kiss, and her shyness came back again when she said to him, I like you too. I noticed that I smiled widely when I was with you. I felt safe and protected around you. I wanted to tell you this, but was afraid to make a move. So I finally gathered courage to do it. Sorry if you didn't like it, but Vine stopped her hands from moving when he crashed her lips upon him and started kissing her deeply. Jungkook, I did it too. We're even now, so don't feel bad about it at all. She smiled, which was actually a blush. He adored her and said, but I didn't know you could do this to me too. At least, I didn't expect from you. Once I felt safe, I didn't have to think twice. My dad told me to listen only to your heart. Every other word trying to convince you otherwise is nothing but nonsense. Vine said, looking at him. Jungkook smiled, feeling proud of her, and put his arm around her neck and said to her, is that so? Then my heart says to walk with you like this, and you can't say anything because it will be only nonsense for me. She laughed again while being in his embrace, and he heard her voice again, which made his heart race up again. They both walked like that to the parking area, where she put a hand around his waist, while Jungkook made a vow in his racing heart to protect her forever like this.